So this week, and I'm hoping that we can get back taping for Osborneville Baptist Church in Brick by the middle of September. So people ask me, why do you do this? Well, why do you tape yourself practicing? I do this, one, that my mom can see my material tomorrow. It's definitely easier to preach in front of people. But also with my friends and some of the congregants that I had, I truly enjoyed the time that we had together. And also the congregants that are shut in. So, and then most importantly, it gives me a chance to go back and see where my mistakes are. And as you can tell, when I preach, I don't use notes. It helps me to memorize it one last time. And then I run through it a couple more times before I preach it. So that's where we are. Or I wake up in the morning and preach it one more time before I go into the church. So that's the reason for that. Now, Hebrews 1:12, 1 through 13. I'll let you read it on your own, but you're going to know this 1:9 probably. But the Olympics, I talked about last week. The Olympics were exciting. And yes, the ratings were down, but I really enjoyed the Olympics. And I'm going to talk about two Minnesota athletes that showed perseverance. And they showed perseverance as Gable Stevenson is from Minnesota. He won the college championship in a different form of wrestling. It's called scholastic wrestling, I believe they still call it that. And he won the national championship. He's an amazing athlete. He does backflips. And after his national championship, then he had to go qualify, and it's a different form of wrestling. They call it freestyle. And then he got into the finals of the freestyle in Tokyo, and this match was one of the best matches I saw. He had like 13 seconds, and he was down by 3 points. And he took a 3-time world champion down once, and he had to take him down again, and it was less than 6 seconds on the clock. And he just got around him in enough time, and they had to check that he got around him in enough time, and the gold medal was on the line, and he got around him in the last second to have 2 points to win the gold medal. It was like .0 something. Less than a second, he says, don't give up. He persevered. And did his backflips, and now he wants to go into the WWE or one of those things. He really likes The Rock. He's also talking to the UFC people, to mixed martial arts, but he really looks up to The Rock in professional wrestling, like Hulk Hogan, John Cena. So anyhow, that was amazing. And then Suni Lee, who's also from Minnesota, her father, had gotten in a horrible accident. But before the accident, you could see these stories behind in the Olympics that they show are just absolutely amazing. He built her a balance beam, and he sanded it down and made it real nice, so she was just a little girl. And so she could practice at home. And he got in a bad accident before she went to the World Championships. And she didn't know if she was going to go. And he's still in a wheelchair. He's been in a wheelchair for a couple of years now. She went and persevered through that and ended up finishing all around a silver medal behind one of the greatest gymnasts of all time, Simone Biles, her teammate. So here she is in Tokyo Olympics. Her dad's watching her, and her family, and everyone's tuned in. And even her teammate, Simone Biles, is watching her, who already won a gold medal in the all-around. And Suni Lee perseveres through it and wins the gold medal in the face of her father, who built this balance beam for her, and was in a wheelchair, and in the car accident that took, that he still has to be in a wheelchair. To see his face was priceless, as she was awarded the gold medal. So athletes, and perseverance, as this is a text that talks about perseverance. Hebrews, and the author, we're not sure who this is. So it's attributed to Paul, but it's not exactly, we believe, that it matches up to Paul's writings. So whoever the writer is, we come to where they talk about the Olympics itself, because the Olympics were back in that time. Olympics actually started 776, I think, around something around that year, before Christ. So the Olympics were popular at that time. And the author writes this beautifully. The literary is beautiful in this. And he starts talking about don't get easily distracted. We can get so easily distracted in verse 1. He talks about easily distracted. We can get caught up in the world, caught up in the devil's schemes and things like that. It's easy to get distracted, easy to get into sin. And he says, and he goes into the athletic form of an athlete, like a runner. And he says, you run the race that is marked out for you through perseverance. At the end of verse 1, we run the race marked out with perseverance. And he takes that athletic form of writing. That's someone that knows the Olympics. And then in verse 2, he explains that Jesus went from shame of the cross all the way to glory and sitting on the right side. But then he flips back into the athletic form again in verse 3 and talks about you keep your eye on the prize, that we don't get easily distracted. We stay on Jesus. The book of Hebrews is a lot of following Jesus Christ as his disciple. And it tells them, and in verse 4 it stays in that athletic form as well, as it you will even take it to the form of blood, where sports and athletics is blood, sweat, and tears. As Suni Lee and Gable Stevenson, they had to go through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to win the gold medal, as athletes back in that time also had to do as well. The author switches it around. In verse 5 through 11, he talks about being a good father. Father. He brings an example of earthly fathers and also God the Father. And how we need discipline. And God disciplines us. God is going to discipline us. God is going to test us. See how much we love him and how much faith we have. God is going to test us. The devil and the world is going to tempt us. As the first verse says, don't be easily distracted by that. Stay focused on Christ. And this discipline that God gives us as a father, as a parent, gives us self-discipline. As God works with us and disciplines us and rebukes us at times. This discipline gives us self-discipline, as you see in verse 11. We're going to go down to 11. As the self-discipline is what we need to produce harvest, to be fruitful. Because without the discipline of the Lord, without trials and errors and failure, we don't gain anything from, we don't learn anything from. And that discipline from God and from life helps us to become self-discipline and gives us produce to be productive and have a harvest. Now the writer switches back again into the athletic role. So you go from discipline to self-discipline, and now we're back in the athletic role as our arms and legs cannot be weak in verse 12. Runners need good arms and legs to run. So spiritually, we can't have weak arms and legs. He's using this metaphorically. So we can't have spiritually weak arms and legs. So he's saying that we have to continue to follow Christ. Stay on Christ. That is the eye of the prize, just like the hymn. Keep your eye on the prize. It's not a gold medal on the race. This race of life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So keep your eye on the prize. Make sure that your arms and legs are not weak. It's just like working out. You work out and you stop working out, your arms are going to get flabby. And your legs as well are going to get weak. The same with spirituality. If you stop talking to the Lord, if you stop the relationship with You're going to get spiritually weak. You don't want that to happen. So, verse 13 kicks in, and when verse 13 kicks in, it talks about level paths for your feet. As a track athlete, the track is flat. You run the race, perseverance is marked out for you. The track has to be level. When we get easily distracted onto things, into the worldly things, tempted by the devil and sin, we get on the paths and our feet become disabled. We need God to enable us, to put us on paths of a flat path of being level. So the big thing is, how do we stay spiritually fit to be able to run this race with perseverance? And the eye of the prize is Jesus Christ, which gives us everlasting life and forgiveness of sins. How do we stay spiritually fit? You guys know the answer to this. You read the Bible. I used to come home from corporate America and just see how hostile it was and just the cutthroat of it. And I'd have to read my Bible before I went to bed every night just to calm me down. A good place to start is either the book of John, or Proverbs as well. Proverbs has a lot of good wisdom. You talk to the Lord. It's a relationship. It's also a lifestyle. You help the neighbor out. That's how we stay fit. We give gratitude. We give mercy and grace. As God gives us mercy and grace, we give mercy, grace, and compassion to others. We give gratitude to the Lord. Not only when things are going good, but also when things are going bad. We listen to sermons. Things might be boring. Your preacher might be boring. But I guarantee you, if you listen, there's going to be something that you'll get out of it that comes from God that will hit you. So listen to the Word. Read the Word. Pray. Talk to the Lord. That's how you stay spiritually fit. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, one of the great 20th century theologians, says this: faith is a deep, thick work. What is faith? Faith is when we say faith, it's very deep, and it has a big meaning to it. So there's things that we have to do. So he says that faith and obedience is huge with faith, is interchangeable in his book of Cost of Discipleship. Discipleship is following Jesus. You follow Jesus. That's what discipleship is. Followers of Jesus, we're disciples. And he says, in order to be disciples, you have to have faith and obedience have to be the same. They're interchangeable. So, faith and obedience. You have to be obedient to the Lord. And to know the truth, you have to have obedience. The truth, the way, the life, to really know the Lord, you have to have obedience. So faith equals obedience as well. And to know the truth, the way, the life, you need to know the Lord. So there is spiritual fitness, obedience, grateful, reading the Word, praying without ceasing, as I say often. Things like that will keep you spiritually fit. Now, the world will knock you off the path, and the devil will knock you off the path of the track. It's like the song, the Queen song, "We Will Rock You." We will rock you. The world will rock you, knock you down, and it's a harsh place. And Satan will try to get you there too, anywhere but to God, and knock you off the race to following Jesus, which is the prize. Keep your eye on the prize. That's Jesus. That's what the book of Hebrews is saying, to follow Jesus. Jesus is the example. So we get knocked off the track, just like the song from Queen. Mud on my face, big disgrace. Kicking my can all over the place. The world will kick your can all over the place. You will be off the track, and you will say, but Jesus will pick you up. He will pick you up, dust you off, and put you right back on the track so you can continue this marathon of what we call life and fellowship, to following Jesus as a disciple. And we run with perseverance. He puts you right back, and you can look at your past. You can look at times right now you may feel it. I am off the track. I haven't talked to the Lord. I haven't been with the Lord. I need to communicate my lifestyle. I haven't been helping the neighbor. I've been hating on the neighbor. I've had fear in my heart. And it gets you off the track. Get back on the track, because Jesus will pick you up, dust you off, and get you where you need to be. You got to be spiritually fit. And Jesus will make you spiritually fit through that discipline, as it talks about from verses 5 through 11. And you're on that track. That's how great our God is. We look back at our past and say, I was way off the track. I don't know how I got back on the track to following Jesus, because I was out there and I was just doing everything and anything. But God picked me up, and God put me in the place I need to be, back on that track, keeping my eye on the prize to follow Him. So athletes do these things, as this is a very athletic text. It's called wind sprints. And the wind sprints is you run about 50 to 100 yards, full-fledged, just sprint as hard as you can, and then you stop. You either jog back, or walk back, or even sometimes you're like this, pant, and then you wait a couple seconds, and then you run back again. Just keep doing it, and it gives you a second wind. When you need to persevere through things, you need a second wind in athletics to help you get over the top, get over your opponent, to come and take somebody down in the last second, or to win a gold medal in wrestling, something like that. As Gable Stevenson said, you never give up, and that perseverance that you need. You get that second wind. Wrestlers do wind sprints, boxers do wind sprints. Most athletes do it. So we need that wind sprint spiritually. What is our wind sprint? And this is something that is so hard for us to do as human beings, because we want to hold everything to ourselves. We want to hold it to ourselves. We want to have control of everything and keep it tight, because if it's not in our care, it's out of our comfort zone. But when we're not in a comfort, when we are outside of our comfort zone, that is when we're closest to the Lord. Let me say that again. When we're not in our comfort zone, that is when we're outside and we are closest to the Lord. So we have to give the control to God. That is our second wind. What is our second wind spiritually? To give the control to God. Not ourselves, not hold on to it tight and do everything ourselves, but to give it to God. And that will make us able. That will keep our past on level ground and not become disabled, because God is able. He is able. So we do our wind sprints. We give the control to God. I'll explain this to you like this. As an athlete, Frank A. Thomas is one of the great homiletic professors in the country. He's written many books. And he was an athlete. In high school, he always wanted to be, and this is a popular race, the 400, 4x400. That's once around the track that 4 people run it. Frank A. Thomas said, I always wanted to be the anchor. The anchor runner is your best runner, usually. Your second best runner is the first runner. They call it like the lead-off runner. They lead off and try to get you a lead. And then your anchor is the best. So your second and third are middle ground. And Frank goes to a college event, I think it was the state championships in college, and he was never even the anchor in high school. And in college, he was the third runner. And he had to give the baton over to the anchor. And he talked about to another pastor who told him this story that he always wanted to be the anchor, but he was not fast enough to be the anchor. And they were at the state championships with all the colleges in that state, and the lead runner takes off for Frank's team. And then he takes off, he's running, gets a good lead around the track, and gives it to the second person. And the second person runs around, he's coming down the track, and he's coming down the home stretch, and the lead starts getting cut slimmer. And he gives the baton over to Frank. Frank's the third runner, and he runs around, and he's coming down the home stretch. Getting down the home stretch, and he feels somebody on the side of him. And his opponent passes him. And then you can see it as they reach back for the baton. And the anchor of the opponent gets the baton and takes off. And Frank's anchor is sitting there waiting, like, come on, give me the baton, Frank. Give me the baton, Frank. Come on, Frank. He gives him the baton and takes off. He goes around the track and tries to catch this person for first place. He comes around the track and around the homestead. They start getting real close. And right at the end, Frank's teammate pulls away and wins. And they win the state championships. I believe that's what the event was. You see, here's my point. Is you have to give, this is an example, you have to give the baton to the anchor man or woman. You have to give the baton to the anchor man or woman so they can finish the race. So we have to give the baton over to the anchor man. Who is the anchor man? Jesus is the anchor man. We give the baton over to the anchor man, and Jesus finishes the race for us. We persevere through this race we call life. It is not a sprint, but it's a marathon because of Jesus. He finishes the race for us. He helps us through the race. When we're off the path, he's the one who picks us up and dusts us off. So we give the baton over as we like to hold on to things. No, don't hold on to things. Give the baton over to the anchor man. That's Jesus Christ. That's the example. We follow him. Give it over to him. That's discipleship. Following Jesus. I got to say it a couple more times because I got to get it in my head. Give the baton over to the anchor man. And the anchor man is Jesus Christ. I got to say it one more time because some of you may not be listening to me. You give the baton over to the anchor man because the anchor man is Jesus Christ and he will finish the race for you. Let Jesus finish the race for you. As we follow the example of Jesus Christ, we give the baton over to Jesus. And he has us run the race with perseverance that is marked out for us. Say it one more time, just for my good self and those that aren't listening and may have not caught this. Give the baton over to Jesus Christ and let him finish the race. Run the race with perseverance that is marked out for you. Love you all. God bless you. Hope you liked my practice sermon. Take care.